Data Voyagers.
Hello, Data Voyagers. This is the 10th episode of the Data Voyagers podcast, navigating the stories behind numbers. And this year, Tom Cruise releases his seventh Mission Impossible movie. And this is our reference for today's episode. You know, we always have like a pop cultural reference, and this is Mission Possible. So that's why the name of the episode is Game Theory Mission Nash-Possible, and you understand what Nash means or who was John Nash in this episode. And we were not talking about Tom Cruise or his latest blockbuster, but about something much more mundane. We're talking about game theory and how game theory influences our everyday life. We're not talking about video games, by the way. That's not the game theory we're talking about. It's an economics theory that influences everything we do in our lives. It influences politics, economy, and everything. And how learning how to play the game of life make our life better. So our mission, should everyone who is listening to us accept it, is to outmaneuver rivals, outsmart algorithms, and rescue profits from the brink of irrationality. So, in the next minutes, in this episode, we'll talk about prisoner dilemmas, we'll decrypt payoff matrices, we'll decode equilibrium coordinates. But remember, if any of your strategies are compromised, the surplus will disavow our knowledge of your return of investment. Too complicated? No worries. That's what we're here for. Um, and with me, as always, my co-host Angelika Klidas. Angelika, thanks for doing this episode with me.
Well, thank you, Igor. So let's start by defining the game, right? It's about game theory, but we also need to
Exactly.
define what it is, actually. So, game theory is a way to
Actually,
study how
just one
people.
second.
Yes,
Um,
sure.
Let me just go back because before we start the episode, we have just a quick word from our sponsors. But and also now I'm doing a reference to Mission Impossible. This podcast will self-destroy in 5 seconds, but unless you listen to our sponsor. So let's go. Dun, 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 dun.
Struggling to migrate to the cloud? Trouble driving adoption? Or just getting started on your digital journey? Call IPC Global, where strategy meets execution and transformation becomes reality. Visit ipc-global.com today.
Now, let me give my message in Portuguese to my editor. Léo, você pode cortar essa depois você pode deixar a musiquinha, você pode só cortar depois e botar a parte do patrocínio aqui, beleza? Aí volta para Angelika falando. Now, Angelika.
Okay, well, thank you, Igor, and let's get into some background information about the game theory. Game theory is a way to study how people make decisions when their choices affect each other. And we have some good examples during this episode. And we could think of it like this: when you play a game with friends, what you do depends on what you think they will do, and they do depend on what they think you will do. So that's kind of tricky, but let's dig a little bit deeper. So what is it? Game theory helps us to understand situations where two or more people have to make choices. Two countries or more countries have to make choices. Each person's result depends not on just on their own choice, but also on what others choose. So what will other countries do uh, against your country? Everyone is trying to get the best outcome for themselves. Well, from a political point of view, you understand how we can manage that. Those elements are called the game theory, and it's not just about games. It applies really to our real life as well. And the key principles behind the game theory are that there are players in this field, and those are the people that make decisions, like you and your friends in a game. There are strategies, and these are the different choices each player can make, like you could cooperate or you can compete, right? And the payoffs. The payoffs is what each player gets as a result, like winning money, getting a good grade, feeling happy, staying on the right lane, don't get fined, don't get hurt, and so on. And then next to that, we have the Nash that's a difficult word for a Dutchie like me. Equilibrium. This is a fancy name for a situation where nobody wants to change their choice because changing would make things worse for them. It's called after the mathematician John Nash. And Igor will tell us in the second section, right about after the opening section that I'm doing, a good example about the prisoner's dilemma that is all intertwined with the Nash equilibrium. Oh, this time it's right. And why does it all matter? Game theory helps to explain many real world situations. Why companies sometimes have price wars that hurt everyone, or how countries decide whether to cooperate or to compete. Why people sometimes do not help each other even when it would benefit everyone else, or how auctions work, or why some negotiations succeed and others fail. And the big lesson, or better said, the good insights, the main insights that you can get from the game theory is that when people only think about themselves, they don't always end up with the best results for everyone or even for themselves. Sometimes cooperation can lead to better outcomes than competition, but it's not always easy to achieve. And game theory gives us the tools to think about these situations more clearly, but also we can find more scenarios, right, in this case. And sometimes, therefore, we can find better solutions. Igor, I think you are going to take us to the story of the prisoner's dilemma, right?
Exactly. So let's talk about the prisoner's dilemma, and talking about prisoner. Let's talk about an example in marriage. No, I'm joking. So no, let's talk about. Think of two roommates. So I'll explain exactly why it's called the prisoner's dilemma. But let's talk about like two roommates, like in college. Let's say Sam and Riley, and they share a tiny apartment with the kitchen. And after every meal, each person can either wash their own dishes right away, that is the cooperate strategy, or they can leave the dishes in the sink and let's say they do it later. That's the compete strategy. So of course we assuming here nobody enjoys like scrubbing dishes, but everyone hates even more cockroaches, like in the apartment, all of the dirty they smell, and even more the passive aggressive post-it notes in the fridge. So, what is the best strategy? So, in other words, we have a different scenarios. So, let's say we have this two roommates, Sam and Riley. So, let's say they both eat and wash the dishes immediately. So they both have the work, so they both have to do a payment, like they have to pay something. They give, well, in that case, it's not money, they give in time, they're doing something they don't like. But the benefit is the kitchen is clean, spotless. Roaches stay away. The meals feels like a Zen temple because nobody's complaining. Everybody did their part. So let's say in mathematical terms, the payoff for Sam and Riley are the same. Let's say each one gets 3. Now, another scenario is Sam washes the dishes, but Riley leaves the dishes behind. So Sam then will have to spend extra time cleaning because Riley is just in the couch playing video games. So the place is still clean, but Sam is tired, Sam is mad. So for Riley, that's the best case scenario because Riley put no effort and the dishes in the apartment is still clean. So the payoff at the end of the day for Sam is 1 because Sam had to do all of the work, and Riley 4, no work, same benefit. Now another scenario is the opposite. If Sam leaves the dishes and Riley washes, it's the same, but then Riley has the work, so Riley has the lower payoff one, and Sam has the better payoff four. So when they compete, the one who doesn't do anything gets all the benefit, and the other one gets all of the work. So we having like one, it's being kind of exploited. Now we have a fourth scenario, which is none of them do the work. That's the extreme of competition. So the sink piles up, the apartment smells like a terrible science experiment, cockroaches everywhere. They mad, they argue around who should do it, and the payoff for both are zero. So you have that the best individual payoff if it is I don't do anything, trusting the other one will do it all the work. But the best payoff overall in general if we collaborate and we both do the work. Just like as Angelika said, cooperation, if we both do it, if we agree that we're cooperating, then it's the best payoff, but but it's not the best individual payoff. So it's the best payoff for the group. So individually, just live it, don't wash the dishes, always looks safer, because whether the other person cleans or not, I save time by not doing the work. So if we think about rational self-interest, individualism, will point for each one of us to not do the work, which leads for both of us having the worst possible outcome. Now, why is this called not the sink dilemma, but the prisoner dilemma? Because originally the mind experiment that was proposed was around a prisoner. So let's say we have, and there's different versions of these, like the number of years in prison for each prisoner is different, but basically this is the idea. Let's say you have two suspects, let's call them Alice and Bob, and they are arrested for burglary, and the prosecutor does not have enough evidence to convict both of them, but he has evidence to convict them for a lesser charge. Let's say possession of burglary tools. So if with the evidence that the prosecutor has, each one can get 1 year in jail. That's it. However, the prosecutor is smart. So the prosecutor then puts them in different rooms. And by the way, if this happens in real situations, and also see that all in movies, you have two suspects or more suspects. They are interrogated separately and they are offered the same deal. And it's pretty much something similar like this scenario. So in this scenario, the prosecutor comes to each one individually and tells, you know what? Here's the deal. If you confess and testify against your partner while they're quiet, so let's say they don't speak, you confess and just testify that, oh yeah, no, he or she did the burglary, then because of your cooperation, I'll let you walk free today. 0 years served. You walk free. Go back home. Your partner, on the other hand, will take the full fall and get 10 years in prison. All right. Now, let's say you don't trust me, you stay silent, and your partner also stays silent. So I can only nail you on the lesser charge, so you each one serve 1 year in prison. All right. Now, let's say you both confess. You confess, but your partner also confess. I can reward you for your cooperation, but you did the crime, so you need to do the time. So each one of you get 5 years. Now, if the opposite happens, if you keep quiet and your partner confesses, then he or she was walking free today, and you get 10 years. Now think it over and remember, I'm doing the same proposal to your partner. So which one is going to be? So clearly, each one, they have two options. They stay silent or they accuse the partner. If you stay silent and the other person also stays silent, you both get 1 year. So you go to prison, but for 1 year. For me, 1 year is a lot, but I didn't do any crime. Now, let's say you still stay silent, but the other person accuses you. So then you get 10 years and they walk free. So staying silent, you can get either 1 year or 10 years. But if you betray your partner and you say, oh, my partner did the crime, and they stay silent, you walk free, you walk today. You leave this today, no crime against you, but they get 10 years. If you betray and he betray or she betray, then each one of you get 5 years. So that's a summary, the proposal. Now, this experiment was done so many times, I cannot recall. It was done many times in different scenarios in college for adult people with actual prisoners. This experiment was done many times in the history. And it almost, in the majority of the time, the betrayal strategy dominates, is the strategy that they both choose in most of scenarios. And why is that? Well, either way, if you betray, if you say the other person did the crime, you are guaranteed that you don't get the worst possible scenario, which is you stay silent, the other person accuses you, and you get 10 years. So the best individual outcome, if it is stay silent, but if you know that the other person will also stay, I'm sorry, the best is the other way. The best individual strategy is I betray the person if I know that person will stay silent. So then I get 0 years in prison. However, if I don't know, the best strategy is if I simply betray, because if the other person stay silent, I walk free. But if they betray, I get 5 years. It's terrible, but it's better than 10. So in that case, I have two mindsets. I can be hopeful. I can let hope decide my actions, or I can let fear decide my action. In fear, usually, according to game theory, fear usually wins, and the politicians use it a lot. There are politicians that they bet on hope, the politicians that bet on fear. Fear usually wins. So the fear of getting 10 years is higher than the hope of getting 0 years. So then they both betray. So, and this is, I gave you two examples, like the roommate dishes, and I get the actual prisoner. But we can mention like global carbon agreements, or work relationships, or there's like many other examples that we can apply the prisoner's dilemma. Like one important concept here that Angelika mentioned before is the concept of Nash equilibrium. And actually, there is a movie, a great movie, by the way. I love this movie. It's called A Beautiful Mind, very popular, famous movie with Russell Crowe doing the main character. And it's based on a real story. There's a lot of fiction there, but it's based on a real story about John Nash. He won Nobel Prize in economics. So that's why it's called Nash equilibrium, because John Nash was the guy who wrote the theory. And in the movie, this did not actually happen in real life, but in the movie, John Nash and his classmates, they are in a bar and they spot like this super beautiful girl. Think about like college kids, not very like mature. So they spot this beautiful girl, and this beautiful girl, she had like four of her friends. So in natural college environment, immature kids, they'll all prioritize talking to the most beautiful one. But the most beautiful one will have like four kids talking to her. She'll probably ignore all of them. So the payoff, it's everybody goes back to their rooms alone. Now, if they try the beautiful one, she says no, and then they try the friends after, the friends will say no because they'll feel offended by being the second choice. They also turn them down. However, according to the movie, what John Nash realized was, well, instead of competing, if we use the collaboration strategy, then we all ignore the most pretty one, the pretty girl. each one of us go to a friend. So each one of us will have equal chance of getting like a girlfriend. And then, by collaborating, we avoid what will be like let's say, in very simple terms, the biggest payoff, which is the getting the prettiest girl. So we don't get that. We don't get like the 0 year in prison, which will be that like the biggest benefit individually. But collectively, we get the second best in choice, which is someone. It's better than no one. However, that strategy only works if everybody sticks to the strategy, stick to collaboration. Nobody can in the mid of the game change the strategy and try to talk to the pretty girl, because otherwise the other ones will do the same, and then we're back to the same first situation. Everybody goes back home alone. So that's what is defined the Nash equilibrium, is the equilibrium of strategies through collaboration, that we can all get not the best possible scenario, but we can get like still good enough by like balancing equilibrium of all strategies. Now, Angelika, I think you will talk about like mixed strategies in game theory, right?
Yeah, and actually a messy reality, right? So mixed strategies. It's a fancy name, but don't let it scare you. It's actually something that we all do or should do in everyday life. Being unpredictable. That's just sometimes good to be unpredictable, right? Most of the time we are predictable in the things that we do because we are common. We have common things that we do. So think about it. If you always think, people can figure you out, right? Like always tries to make the most obvious best move. But a good player, they don't know their opponent will see that coming. So they mix it up. Maybe that they'll maybe they will make it the top most of the time. Or when sometimes they try a different move or a total unacted one. That little bit of randomness keeps their opponent guessing, and that's the whole point of a mixed strategy. You are not picking one fixed action, you are playing a kind of action lottery so that no one can predict your next step. It's what I do, for example, in playing the colonists of Catan. It's and you need to follow certain paths do things, but you have to have certain scenarios. So let's try to look at some real world examples. Sprinkle of randomness makes a huge difference. So imagine if you are on a busy highway, 3 lanes wide, and traffic is starting to slow down. What happens? Everybody sees the left front lane moving just a tiny bit faster so that everybody rushes over. And what happens then? That lane gets totally jammed. It's a classic example of everyone trying to do the best thing, but it ends up in making things worse for everyone. I see that every day on the road, on the highway here in the Netherlands. That lane moves faster, so I switch over and then. Now, what if some drivers will use a mixed strategy? Instead of always switching to the faster lane, they only switch sometimes, maybe 2 out of 5 trips. And studies using sensors on highways actually show that if even just 10% of the drivers adopt this, maybe the I'll move, maybe I won't mindset, the average speed of for all lanes goes up. So your small random choice helps ease the jam for everyone. It's not it's not about being perfectly predictable, right? Just think about it in your everyday life. We had the European Championship of ladies soccer football, and there were many games ended with the penalty series. So the first one that had 5, blah blah, they won. And the soccer penalty gives where the goalkeeper is playing against the striker, right? The player that kicks the ball. And this is a fantastic example of mixed strategies in action. Goalkeepers spend hours in watching videos of opposing strikers. They even have their water bottles filled with prints, um, which player kicks in which ball and how what is the percentage and so on. But if a striker always shoots the ball to the bottom right corner, eventually the goalkeeper will figure out, guess correctly, and he will block the shot. But elite strikers are the true masters of mixed strategies. They'll shoot left, right, or straight down the middle, roughly one third of the time each. So, and the exact numbers they might change a bit by season, but both the striker and the goalkeeper are constantly adjusting based on what the other is doing. It's like a dance where both sides are trying to outsmart the other, and by just being unpredictable enough in this case. And even in the ladies' soccer game, the European Championship, um, when England, there is one player, I believe her name is Kelly, and she was always put in the game later in the game. But she had such a self confidence in kicking the ball, and she has some kind of routine. And even she missed one, but in the rebound, she kicked it in. It was not during the penalty series, but it was actually at the penalty. A striker can kick the ball for the second time when it's stopped or blocked by the goalkeeper going. But it was predictable that she could go there. And then we are in the world of online advertising. Companies bid against each other to show you ads, Google Ads, for example. And if your company always bids the same amount of for a space, competitors will quickly learn your limit in your AdWords or in the ads, and they will just bid a tiny bit more than you, and you will lose out. Modern ad platforms are very smart. They actually shake up the bids on purpose. Um, and there are thousands of them. I play always at an auction here to buy stuff, and they know that I am probably very, very predictable in offering money to buy something on an auction site. Um, but I always try to be unpredictable. Sometimes I go higher and sometimes I go lower, but then eventually I get my stuff more cheaper. Um, then the home security routine, outsmarting the burglar. That's a practical one for everybody, right? If we have the same routine every day, and you close down your light at 7:30 and you open up your lights at 7:30 or make noise at those times, um, they do the homework, burglars. They watch your house and they see that every single weekday the lights go out, the lights go on, and your house becomes a safe target because they know you're not there. But you can become unpredictable. You can use the mix strategy by using smart plugs for your lights to turn it on and turn it off on different moments. I even can use my lights through my mobile phone in my smart lighting or sound. I let a radio play on a timer and do it on several moments on a day, or in your parking lot, car somewhere else, or and not always inside the garage. And that makes a huge difference. Like if your routine is always predictable, the quiet break in by the burglar can be high, 9 chances in 10. If your routine is sometimes home, sometimes not, and you play that game by outsmarting with noise, with lights, and you have a medium range, right? So 5 chances into 10. And if the lights pop on and the noise pop on, then you get low odd, like 2 chances in 10, right? So by adding uncertainty, the expected reward for a burglar choosing your house drops significantly. Wow, what a word. So they're looking always for easy targets, and your unpredictable routines makes your place seem too risky for a burglary. And it costs only thing that it cost will cost you is a smart, cheap plug and a bit of randomness. And that's a mixed strategy at work. No complicated math, just breaking the habit of being perfectly predictable in your daily life. And the key takeaway here is that smart strategy gives you that insight that being predictable can make you vulnerable. whether it's in traffic, in sports, in business, or even protecting your own home. Adding that little bit of randomness or that intelligent randomness, a mixed strategy can give you a huge advantage. It keeps your opponents or competitors guessing, and it often leads to better outcomes for you. It's about smart and not being the best fixed way. And I think, Igor, we have come to this next segment, right? And you are going to talk a little bit about repeated games and the long shadow of reputation.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we study game theory, which is a subject very interesting that I like and study over the years, and all introduction books about game theory that I read or articles, they always start with what we call the one-shot deal. Those are short negotiations. So let's say you have two players, you and we both make a choice once in terms of our strategy, collaboration, or competition. Then we pay the price and we walk away. We're never doing that negotiation over again. Which it happens. You might have situations like you are in a public space or something, or in a traffic condition, as you said, and it's a one-shot deal. You're not seeing those people again. But in real life, games are usually a single round. Like we keep in meeting the same co-workers every day, the same customers or competitors. So when a game repeats, each move becomes a signal about the future. So as you said, when you doing auctions, because people already know you, you cannot use just the one shot deal. Sometimes you need to bet higher, lower. You need to change your strategy to increase your chances. So there's a few concepts when we're talking about multi-round games, and I'm talking about customer relationship or supplier relationship or co-workers or partners, etc. So one of these concepts, and I'll present four concepts here for this episode. One is what we call the shadow of the future. So if I know I'll meet you again, betraying you today can cost me tomorrow's business. So it's like, yeah, I'll get one shot deal. I'll win today, but I'm not going to win tomorrow and the day after and the day after. So that's something you need to consider. Another concept is the concept of reputational capital. So every round adds or subtract trust points. So I do something, I get more trust from you, or I lose trust from you. And those points are actually very valuable currency in later rounds. Now, another one was called the tit for tat logic. And that's actually and I'll give you a few examples. There's a simple and I'll like our listeners to pay attention to this. Is very important. This is a very simple, but it's a proven recipe. Very simple way to play the game. Start cooperating, match the other side's last move, forgive one after one retaliation, and that rhythm over time brings stabilization to what we call the long-term cooperation games. And I'll give you a few examples. Like tariff is one example of that I will discuss in a minute. Now, and the last concept that I want to bring is what we call the discount factor. And economists actually formalize how much we care about tomorrow with a number. There's actually a scale. How much we care about tomorrow is a scale between 0 and 1. The higher it is, the more future payoffs matter and the easier cooperation becomes. So if it is something short term, let's say I'm in this town, I'm never going back here again, I'm never meeting these people again. So that scale is close to 0. But if let's say I'm in my work environment, so that is pretty close to 1. So you need to balance those. So mathematically, any outcome that keeps both sides better off than contest warfare can survive if the parties values tomorrow high enough. So in practical terms, it boils down to the following. The promise of another round is the cheapest contract you ever write between two parties in a game. So, and I want everybody to keep this in mind, since it is a very important lesson on negotiations and competition. So, collaboration it usually matters most. And actually, maybe later I can talk about this a little bit. I am a work for a click partner company, so we have other click partner companies that we could see either as collaboration or a competition, and I'll explain how I use since the beginning game theory to basically to decide my actions. So let me give you an example about pricing wars. And actually, this happened in airline pricing wars. So in March 2019, talking about a year, a little bit less before the pandemic, um, there was an airline that basically slashed the Boston Los Angeles fares. So it reduced the price by about 40%, which is a lot, almost half of the price of the flight Boston LA. Within a day, two rivals matched the price. And that's starting off four cycles of cut, match. So first airline cut the prices, and all the two rivals did the same. And then the first airline cut the prices even more, and they did the same. And after 2 weeks, everyone raised all the prices together. There was no explicit meeting or collusion. They just each company just realized that like cutting the price endless will destroy their margins, will destroy the businesses. So historical fare trackers show that these oscillations tapering into usually a truce once the analysts on each side, in their case, and on each company, forecast that the long run hit to their profits will be actually affected. So that's what happened. So they didn't combine the pricing, but they started competing, and then they realized, oh, it's not like competing. It's going to be worse for everyone. So they individually decided to bring the prices back to normal fares. There's an angle here through reputation. So any company that didn't follow that the price cut, they will risk to be seen as I don't know, price gouging image. Like so they had to respond to the price cuts. But and usually when one company start cutting the price, that drives panic in the other companies, and they react by doing the same, by matching that. So the winning move here was one of the concepts that I gave before, was the tit for tat. So match once to show that you have courage, but then wait after that. Don't keep matching. Don't keep matching if they keep cutting. So that was the airlines that did that strategy won on the long run. Now another example, rideshare fee battles. Like we have companies like at least in the US, like Uber, Lyft, all these companies that do rideshare. I'm not mentioning any particular company. So let's say platform A will drop the driver commission that was 25% to 20%, so increase their margin. And then the platform B does the same. Basically does the same to increase his margin, etc. Now, the drivers will basically migrate to whoever platform looks kinder. But internal retention data shows actually a twist. The long-term loyalty from the drivers rises not from the cheapest platform or the platform with the biggest return, but the one that sticks to that strategy longer. So in terms of reputation, let's say the drivers will quickly learn, well, company X, they basically give up in 4 weeks, company Y in 2 weeks. So that actually inform a rule of thumb, spread through WhatsApp groups, Reddit, and influence the supply distribution more than the how much the platform spend on advertisement. So what the platforms should do in that case is again the tit for tat logic. So your competition did something, you match the first time, but then you wait to see what will happen. Now let's talk about tariffs, because it's a topic that currently is being discussed a lot worldwide, not only in the US but worldwide. And we can study, and historically, when you talk about a tariff, it's not today, it's like historic. If we go back over 100 of years, it's the same game being played over and over again. It's a game play in rounds. So let's say you have the first round, and country A just adds 25% tariff on, let's say, imported steel from country B. And country A hopes to protect the domestic mills before, let's say, an election year. In the short run, countries A steel makers, they think this is amazing, but the car manufacturers in that country, they struggle, they complain about the higher costs. Now we go to the second round of the tariff game. Within a month, let's say the country B fires back. And then they say, okay, you put 25 tariffs on my steel. I'm putting 30% on soybeans, which is one of the biggest exports of country A. So countries B go, it's political. Soybean growers are clustered, let's say, in swing districts that a certain party cannot afford to lose, for example. So that's a classic. Country A tariffs country B tariffs country A. So there is a play. One player do a play around, and then you basically do the same. You repeat your opponent's strategy. Now, what's going to happen in round 3 and on is what's going to define who's going to win the game. So let's say analysts in both countries, they do a lot of calculation, and they say, well, the steel job saves at about 5,000, but also we risk soybean sales, and we're projecting to lose 40 billion. So we win in one side, we lose in the other side. So each side, country A and B, they weigh in tomorrow's pain against today's pride. And if they keep escalating, let's say now we're tariffing aluminum and then cars and then technology, that cumulative GDP hit will reduce any short-term win. So at the end of the day, the shadow of the future, the first concept that I introduced before, starting to matter. So pretty soon, my short-term win, like political gain or economic gain, will be shadowed by the amount that I will lose in the mid and long term. Now, then we have round 4. To pro for a truce without looking weak, country A, who started the war, announces, we're doing exceptions. The first, for example, 500,000 tons of steel can enter without a tariff. So that's a classic tit for tat forgive but verify move. So it's cooperative but limited. So you don't sound weak, but you giving up something. And then country B does the same. So they started competing. Now they started competing, and they did change to collaboration game. So okay, you did the exemption. I'll do the exemption in your tariff on 30%. Let's say 10% on the next harvest, but only next harvest. And then like both then sit and they talk and they walk towards collaboration. They walk toward the Nash equilibrium, which is a moderate symmetrical tariffs. And in the long term, one doesn't move, the other matches, they wait, they basically retreat, they talk, and they collaborate. So they might start competing, but collaboration has a higher win at the end of the day. So this fits in the whole game theory by basically all of the concepts that I explained, like the tit for tat rhythm. This happens all the time. Each country answers the other's last action almost one for one. The raise, counter raise, partial cut. So that's the tit for tat. Reputation capital. Neither side wants to appear soft, but they want a future market access. So they have to show strong internally, but externally and behind the doors, they negotiate. And then also we need to consider what they call the discount factor, because trade relationships span decades, not just 1 month, 1 year, or one election cycle. So tomorrow losses weigh heavily on today's calculus, making cooperation cheaper than these endless escalations and price wars, etc. Now, the name of our podcast is Data Voyager. So we talk about data, why data teams should care about any of this. So you may become a better data analyst, data even scientist, if you consider those theories and you start applying your day-to-day work. So dashboards, they treat each data point as isolated snapshots. And by doing so, they miss the story, they miss the richer story behind the scenes. Like, for example, churn that are followed by return, price cut followed by retention, pledge followed by compliance. So sequence analysis, customer journey visualization, cohort retention curves, rolling Windows KPIs, those kind of analysis, they're way more beneficial to the customer in order to understand the business and prepare for the future, because it helps you spot these tit for tat loops, reputation resets, impending trusts. So in summary, you zoom out and plot like the moves, not just like the moment. And so, for example, next time you're analyzing data and you see a metric spike in week 3 and then collapse in week 4, you might ask now, whoa, now that I know more about game theory, is this a one-shot fluke? Is a one-shot deal? It's a game of one round? Or let's say it is a game of multiple rounds that will decide in the final quarter. So that question that you started asking yourself will turn raw data into strategic foresight. All right, pretty good. Now we have something to talk about all of these in modern days, and also including some use of AI involved in all of these game theory, right, Angelika?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in this particular part, I think it's fascinating how it also relates to artificial intelligence, as it has evolved from playing simple games to manage complex real world situations. And in these days, in this era, we are moving from the idea of a single AI brain beating a human at chess to many as working AIs working together almost like a swarm and solve big problems that we have in the world. Um, and there are some examples in this case. Sorry, it's kind of later. Um, it's the evolution of AI from chess to swarm. So remember when when Gary Kasparov has beat the IBM's Deep Blue computer in 1997. That was big at that moment, but Deep Blue was designed to play against just one opponent, and it only looked a few moves ahead. And if we look at the time now in 2025, when and the world is filled with what we call multi-agent systems, think about self-driving cars. Think about those super fast computer programs that buy ads online in milliseconds. The brokers that are buying shares, just like that, with the big screens, they can follow up. It's all happening in milliseconds with multi-agent systems. Um, and even the large language models that power chatbots which learn from feedback given by thousands of people, because we help train those models. The game has totally changed. That is what we see. It's no longer just one powerful AI brain against another one. Now it's more about many AI brains and all interacting and adjusting to each other in real time. It's like a whole team of players on the field, constantly communicating and adapting and work together to make the best of it. And you can see it in the large language model era, where we started out on November 30th with ChatGPT. Then ChatGPT or OpenAI sold the shares to Microsoft Copilot, and it's embedded in Copilot in any in version. You can use it for free, which is handy. But when you pay a certain amount of money per month, you will get more opportunities to also work from your work environment instead of only on the web environment. You can either buy bigger subscriptions, and that's the model that Microsoft has chosen to follow. Um, AI embedded everywhere, even in the Click portfolio that we use, both Igor and that we love, is also using AI. And at the moment, we can test direct models as well. So everything is working together. It's a whole different ball game at this moment. Um, but you can use it also for autonomous traffic, the invisible dance at the intersection. So let's just imagine that you are at a busy intersection during rush hour, but instead of human drivers, we have self-driving cars. Your electric autonomous car is not just driving itself, it's also talking to three other cars nearby, maybe even a delivery drone flying overhead, and the city main's traffic computer, and everything is connected. Each of these vehicles has a smart AI inside that constant content how do you say that? Um, that always asks, if I move forward right now, how will all the other vehicles react? This mini game of prediction and reaction is played out every tiny fraction of a second until all the cars can safely cross the intersection. Now, the amazing thing here is that the cars find a solution that's like a rolling invisible dance. No single car can suddenly change its mind without messing up things for everyone else. And this is why a group of self-driving cars can move so smoothly and rarely get stuck in traffic jams, unlike us humans. Um, how about the example warehouses and sidewalk robots? The ASL is the arena. So have you ever seen those videos of those huge online? I did. I have been in a warehouse and saw all the robots moving. Uh, Huge online shopping warehouses, and hundreds of small flat robots zip around carrying bins or products to the packing stations, and they all share those narrow aisles, and each robot wants to find the quickest way to its destination. Now, if every robot chooses the absolute shortest path, they would crash into each other all the time. But instead, those robots, they use a clever trick. They add a tiny bit of randomness to their routes. So they don't always take the exact shortest path. Sometimes they'll choose a slightly different, but still very good route. And that is their mixed strategy at work. It helps to balance and avoid collisions. And over a whole work shift, these robots develop movement patterns that humans would never think of designing. It's like a living, breathing map of movement and updates thousands of times of a second, making sure that everything runs smoothly. And it's really beyond your imaginations if you walk into a smart warehouse and see those robots moving. Um, and then we have um, the AlphaZero self play, right? Google created an AI called AlphaZero, and that plays games like chess, a Japanese game called shogi, and an ancient Chinese game named Go. But here's the cool part. AlphaZero doesn't play against humans, it plays against copies of itself, millions and millions and millions of times. And it's like having an entire army of itself practicing non-stop, generating a massive amount of game data. In this sandbox environment, AlphaZero discovers new ways to play, new strategies, and new balance situations that humans would never find. And even after centuries of playing those games. So the big lesson for businesses here is simple. If your market is too complicated to understand with traditional methods, you can let two versions of your pricing algorithms battle each other overnight. You you can then see which strategy wins, and you wake up with a whole new understanding of your market. This kind of fake competition can be much cheaper and faster than trying out ideas in the new world. And then we have the online ad auctions, um, a place where a lot of money is earned by the diverse platforms. And it's really algorithms against algorithms, right? And every time you load a web page, there is a super fast real time auction happening behind the scenes to decide which ad you will see. And each company is trying to show you an ad as a tiny AI agent that is trying to do two things at once with the chance to show you their ad and also not to spend too much money. And the rules of these auctions are designed to make sure that the ads shown are the most relevant and efficient ones for you. Uh, the example that I use in my classroom is always like, I have made one search on Google to buy a new washing machine. What happens in my Instagram and in my Facebook environment? I get wash machines everywhere. I am a huge fan of MasterChef Australia, and I use that all the time. And now my timeline in Instagram is filled with MasterChef, MasterChef. So it's a bidding war behind the scenes in what you see, but also your own behavior causes that mixed strategy, right? Um, so then we have the next one, which is called the RLHF and chatbots, so humans as strategic players. So have you ever noticed how polite and helpful modern chatbots are? And that's often thanks to something we call reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. And this is where thousands of human reviewers score the chatbot's answers. What did you think of this answer? And you rate it. These reviewers are essentially players in a cooperative game. And they reward answers they like and they penalize those they don't. And the chatbot, being an AI, learns from this feedback and adjusts its way of speaking and to please the crowd. And the more diverse the group of reviewers is, the more balanced and socially acceptable the answers will be. So when people talk about making AIs aligned with human values, they're really talking about designing this game. Who sets the rules for what's good or bad? Or how often do we check those rules? I remember a story from Microsoft. I don't know the tool name anymore from my head, but they launched something like Twitter, and within 24 hours after it was fed with filthy language, with hate and discrimination, within 24 hours it started reacting in a bad way, and they had to put it take it away from the internet. Do you know that story too, Igor?
Oh yeah, they create a bot. They would learn from people's feedback. People learn about this, and they try to trolling that bot, and basically they turned the bot into a neo-Nazi, which
Yeah.
was terrible idea from Microsoft. And then they had to
And
take
it
it out.
happened within 24 hours, right? And
It was
why
very
this?
very quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all the things that we have discussed, it matters for analytical teams because it's the future of our business, right? um, AI self play is better than guesswork. So instead of guessing what might happen, you can set up two AI forecasting programs to spar with each other to to see. This can reveal hidden problems or opportunities before you risk any real money. I remember you wrote an article about machine learning and how to use the setup, and do not be tricked by the world of dimensions, right? Adding more and more and more columns. Um, Metrics and AI moves are AI moves. So that's a strange title. No, that's a strange little change in a bit or a slight variation in a robot's route, or even a chatbot's unique way of answering questions. And these might not be random errors, but they could be an AI's mixed strategy at work, a deliberate choice to be unpredictable. And that's what happened. And guys, dashboards are arenas. Soon your business dashboards won't just show your numbers, they will be like arenas where dozens of tiny AI agents are constantly working. I know the tools are there. We can ask simple questions to a data set and it gives an answer back. But we have to be aware that also we have to use the mixed strategies here as well. So I think in the near real future, the line between traditional data and analytics, analysis, and these algorithm games, they will disappear. Running a report might feel less like printing a chart and more like being a referee in a tournament of a smart, data-hungry AI bot. So each one will be trying to find its own best possible outcome in the big game of business. So I think that our line of work um, will change, and that we have to change our behavior. So the biggest question here, and that's one that I want to ask you, Igor, is how does the game theory and all this that we have discussed in data and AI literacy? It's a new question, I know, but it just popped up in my head, and I wanted to ask you.
So we can there's many ways to answer the question, but in respect to today's episode, answering through the optics of game theory, and I think we can even like lead to the conclusion of the this episode. What we need to consider is um, there are two ways that we can perceive our interaction with AI. One is through competition, another is through collaboration. So competition might give individually, not considering the AI's move. And let's consider I am a player, AI is the other player in the game. So I'm playing against AI. So if I compete against AI, and that also leads to companies, let's say you're a company, how you handle the boom of AI in the world. Well, let's look through the optics of game theory. I can either compete against AI. So individually, if I choose my play right, if an AI does what I hope AI will do, I'll win big time and my competitions will lose. However, if AI does not do what I think it will do, I might have the worst outcome for me individually, or we both lose, which will be, let's say, one strategy is like, let's forbid my employees to use any AI tool or to upload any of our documents to any AI. So that would be one strategy. But if they don't comply, then you lose in big time because you have zero control, zero visibility, zero governance. On the other hand, um, if you choose that strategy and everybody complies, everybody will follow by the rules, then you get like big time. I don't need to worry about AI right now. I don't need to invest a single money. People are not using things will keep the same. And I'm assuming that my competitors are not gaining productivity through AI, just like I did not. Now, on the other hand, um, I can have like a midterm strategy. I can have, let's say, a cooperation strategy. Okay, we use AI, but not any AI. We have governance on top of AI. We have data quality control over AI. We have AI consult team in our company that will do research and discuss and teach, educate people how to responsibly use AI. We might have AI governance tools like Click Answers, for example, instead of just letting everything. So then we go and use something in the middle, and we both like win. So that's what I think what we can think about the strategy. And
I think
again,
so.
this concept. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we could do another session about the game theory in relation to data and AI literacy, because I think it's a very important topic now that we discussed it. And I knew a little about it, but now during the study of this episode and the discussion that we just did in this podcast, helps me to understand that the scenarios that we can discuss, right? Because it's scenario planning, uh, and it's about my action against another one in a game element or in a strategy element.
Mhm.
It can help to become successful or to win, or to get the best price, or the best price for my country, and so on. So yeah, I think it's a very important topic in relation to data and AI literacy. um, and I think we learned a lot today, right?
Yes, yes. Like I could give you one. Let me give you a real example because we didn't mention any companies, anything, but give you a real example. Apple, the company, not the fruit. It's a great example. The relation, the way, and there was on purpose. There was not coincidental. There was not because of personality. There was on purpose. It was planned. When Steve Jobs was around, and he was the CEO of Apple, he on purpose created different teams doing the same project, and they created a competition strategy. So they have to compete. Who loses, they either lose the job, they lose the bonus, they'll have some punishment, and who wins will get like some benefit. So then he used that strategy. On the short term, his strategy of competition won big time because great innovation, products deliver on time, everybody happy. On the long term, that strategy was not so efficient because as soon as he left the company, um, things do not follow through, not because of him, but because of the strategy. And also, people hated working for him. People try to kill themselves, and that's why I always get very nervous about it when I see people using him as an example of a leader. I think it was a terrible leader, great innovator, terrible leader, because he used a competition instead of collaboration. Um, Now let's bring back to relationships. Like you have a relationship with a person, could be a marriage, could be a friendship, could be a boss-employee relationship, any relationship. We can use things that we apply here. Like collaboration is long term is usually the best approach, but also when you have a disagreement, tit for tat. You don't want to comply in the first move because you look weak, so you match whatever other play the other person did, and then at long term you come up with an agreement that would be not the best optimal scenario for individually any of you, but it will be the best for both of you combined. Like the dishwasher example, I think is a perfect example like that. So, and I think if I have to summarize what we learned today, I will summarize in three let's say compass points. One is quantify the incentives. And as a person, as a citizen in the society, as in my case, as a husband, as a father, as an employee, but also as a manager in a lot of times, as a provider of services, and the incentives could be cash, clicks, clicks not with the Q, with the C, like clicks, and we're talking about ads, for example, kudos or karma, whatever, or reputation, or whatever incentives you want to bring, um, because you cannot steer what you cannot price. So there's always incentives are important in any game. So if there is a game like everybody says, if you play, let's say poker, with no money involved, people don't get as they don't play as well, as motivated as if there is a prize, even if it is 50 cents. There's a prize involved, people get more motivated. Another is you have to expect contra moves. Um, so there are. So let's forget about the wishful thinking. There will be contra moves. There will be reaction to my moves. If I do a cut in price, there will be a reaction, or a cut in, or a price adjustment, whatever I'm doing. There will be countermoves, or if I adopt a certain policy, there will be countermoves as well. So you need to consider those and consider always the collaboration strategy on the long term. If you're just concerned about short term, competition wins, long term collaboration wins, and always think about relentless iteration. So it's a multi-round game. So today's winning will play nudges in tomorrow's board into this in the entirely new puzzle. So and but game theory at the end of the day boils down to one single rule: incentives. In terms of businesses, incentives drive behavior. So figure it out in the different games you play in your life, professionally, personally. Figure out who are the players, what each player wants, and whether you will meet again or is just one single game. And then use this map to make your choice. Sometimes you collaborate, sometimes you will bluff, but always try to keep one move ahead. Now, personal story. Um, when I'm working with people who, they work in a different company, who are not our customers, who are not our business partners, I could have two strategies. I could hide everything that I'm doing, not help anybody at all, and be like in my little word, choosing the competition strategy. However, we all in the same board. If we collaborate, that's as a click partner ambassador, that's how I see. And there's something 100% personal. Don't I don't mean that I'm right or I just how I think, and I think in use game theory to help my decision making. Um, Collaboration on the long run, which is I want to play the long run game, not the short, not one round game. I want to win the Super Bowl. I don't want to win just one quarter, one drive. So collaborating. Then, like if another company, it's like say promoting Click, they help me indirectly. If I'm promoting them, I'm helping them indirectly. We both win on at the end of the day because we both competing against the same thing, which is in our case very specifically will be like Microsoft, for example. So collaboration beats will beat competition in that case because we play in the long run. So always keep that in mind, and I hope for our listeners this was a valid episode. And I'm inviting everyone, keep navigating the stories behind the numbers. Subscribe to our podcast. Check our website, datavoyages.net. Our store, we have some pretty cool stuff left to sell to help support our project, and our blog and everything else that we do. Angelika, thank you once more, and
Thank you for this interesting session. I learned a lot during this session, and let's continue and make number 11 soon.
All right. Ciao, pessoal. Goodbye, everyone.
Doei allemaal.
Data